brethren, now we have the teacher of the day, continuing with the book of Romans, Brother Jackson's. And so uh, we'll see in a few, okay, brethren? Brother Jackson?
Happy Sabbath, brethren. This is a bright and beautiful day here in New York. May, however it is in your area, I pray that it is my hope that the Spirit of Elohim is shining in our hearts with joy and strengthening us, seeing us through another week. And here we are again, on this wonderful Sabbath day that He has made holy Himself. He created all things in 6 days, and on the seventh day, He stopped. He did no work therein, and declared it a holy day, a set apart day, a most holy day. So today, brethren, we will move forward with the book of Romans. We started last Sabbath with chapter 1. We read verses 1 through 7, and I will read verses 1 through 7 as for a brief recap and continue from there on with verse 8. So it says, Paul, a servant of Yeshua Messiah, called to be an apostle, separated to the gospel of Elohim, which he promised before through the prophets in the Holy Scriptures concerning his son, Yeshua Messiah, our sovereign, who was born of the seed of David according to the flesh, and declared to be the Son of Elohim with power according to the Spirit of holiness by the resurrection from the dead, through whom we have received grace and apostleship for obedience to the faith among all nations for his name, among whom you also are called of Yeshua Messiah. To all who are in Rome, beloved of Elohim, called to be saints, called to be sanctified. Grace to you and peace from Elohim our Father and the sovereign Yeshua Messiah. So that's what we covered last Sabbath, and we went through it briefly. We saw how Paul was called, is a servant of Yeshua Messiah, and he was a servant. He could have been chosen to do all sorts of things, but specifically he was called to be an apostle. One of the roles among the believers, separated specifically to the gospel of Elohim. He was an apostle, and his job was to make sure that he focused on the declaration of the gospel of Elohim, which was promised before through the prophets and the Holy Scriptures. So it was spoken by the prophets and recorded in the Holy Scriptures. What was recorded specifically concerning his son? Whose son? The Father's son, the Elohim, the Almighty, his son, Yeshua, the Savior, Messiah, the elect one, our sovereign, the supreme. That's Kyrios, our supreme, who was born of the seed of David according to the flesh, who through the long generations of from Adam's, jumping all the way to Noah, to Abraham, but it was the seed of the woman, right? All the way through, funneling through David in Judah, and finally being born through Miriam, who is of Judah. So born of the seed of David according to the flesh. So whoever that would be a descendant of David, and Miriam was indeed or Maria and the Aramaic would have been a descendant of David. And it was her seed, the seed of the woman, as we talked about last Sabbath, and declared the Son of Elohim with power according to the Spirit, just as our sister read in the portion of the scriptures that Paul did not come in great wisdom, that is wisdom like human wisdom, but in the demonstration of the power of the Spirit. And we'll see a little bit of that as we read through on. But so with power, he didn't just come in words. Remember, we're spoken of him. We've never seen it like this. They said of him, we've never seen great works like this when Messiah was on earth, some said of him. And the Apostle John said, he supposes that the whole world could not hold the volumes of books that would be written of what he has done. So with power he came, not just words, according to the spirit of the sanctified spirit, a spirit unlike any spirit, the supreme spirit, spirit of holiness. And not only by that, by his actions, but by his resurrection from the dead. Only he rose from the dead like that. All others were made alive by someone else, like someone came and said rise or whatever, but he was the only one who is the resurrection, and actually in of himself rose from the dead, because the Father has so declared him to have that in him. He is the resurrection. So through whom we have received grace and apostleship. And we said grace is not just unmerited pardon, as some would want to narrow it down. Oh, we're forgiven, that's it. No, grace is that too, but it's much more. Grace is receiving the power, the ability to do the things we need to do, especially as spoken in Ezekiel, the ability to keep the commandments of Elohim. That grace. An apostleship, not from men, but it's an apostleship that is by the power of that same spirit, which brings about obedience of the faith among all nations for his name. And that's why when there are others boasting to be apostles, and they're self-proclaimed apostles or made apostles by some group, look at their works and see if there's any fruit, because the true servants of Elohim always bear fruit. They're not going to just do things that it falls apart. No, what they do will not fall apart. Whatever Elohim has given them to work to do, it will be successful and will continue. And this is how you will know a person was set by Elohim. It doesn't fall apart. They never have to correct their teachings. Rather, their teachings are foundational. They may not know everything, but they will learn more and more. But Elohim doesn't allow them to make mistakes in their teachings. He doesn't. It doesn't mean they know. No, doesn't mean they know it. No, they don't. But Elohim limits them because of the love in their hearts for Elohim and for others. They're very careful as to what they say. They don't just say anything that comes out of their mouth. Oh, I'm sorry, that was wrong. No, true servants of Elohim don't do that. If it's the spirit of Elohim, the Elohim doesn't do that. So the teachings of the servants are foundational, are in steps, are in layers, but they never have to erase anything. Okay, so that's one of the things to be mindful. So to all who are in Rome, so it says, for the obedience to the faith among all nations, for his name, for his authority, for his renown. Okay, so true servants of Elohim will be effectual in the work. That's what we have to pay attention to, and not effectual in their own little corner, but it's effectual where it impacts the whole world, because Elohim is concerned about a worldwide work. He doesn't do something in a corner. He doesn't have a body that's divided where it's only happening here. No, he makes it spread so that all can know. For among all nations, for his name, among whom you also are the called of Yeshua Messiah. Among whom are these? He's talking about people, the Romans here. So among whom, because he's writing to them. So you too, the Romans. And as I said, it's important for us to understand the Romans are what? The fourth beast spoken of in the book of Daniel. So we could understand and not let false teachings clutter our thinking or misconstrue reality. As to Babylon, so to Rome. Always keep that in mind. The same way you saw Elohim worked in Babylon through Daniel is the same way he worked with the Romans among his apostles, and continues to do so to this very day, because Rome is the last earthly earthly power that Elohim put into play. And it will fall apart, fall apart, fall apart until Elohim's kingdom rules over all. But here he is addressing those who are the saints in verse 7, to all who are in Rome, beloved of Elohim, called to be hagios, hagion, kadosh, set apart, holy, called to be saints. Grace to you, grace, again, forgiveness, empowerment to you, and peace, shalom, wholeness from the Almighty, from Elohim, our Father, and the sovereign Yeshua Messiah, the elect Savior, the sovereign elect Savior. So that's what we covered last Sabbath. Now let's move on with verses 8 through 16. First, so with that introduction, who he is serving, and who he is addressing, now Paul continues with saying his first inclination here, his first purpose. Verse 8, first, I thank my Elohim through Yeshua Messiah for you all, that your faith is spoken of throughout the whole world. For Elohim is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I make mention of you always in my prayers, making request, if by some means now at last I may find a way in the will of Elohim to come to you. For I long to see you, that I may impart to you some spiritual gift, so that you may be established. That is, that I may encourage, that I may be encouraged together with you by the mutual faith, both you and me. Now, I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that I often planned to come to you, but was hindered until now, that I might have some fruit among you also, just as among the other Gentiles. I am a debtor before the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. Verse 15, so as much as is in me, I am ready to preach the good news, to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome also. For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Messiah, for it is the power of Elohim to salvation for everyone who believes, for the Jew first, and also for the Greek. For in it the righteousness of Elohim is revealed from faith to faith, as it is written, the just shall live by faith. Okay, let's do a review. So we read Paul's introduction, his greetings, and setting his in through verses 1 through 7, and now verses 8 through 16 and through 17, we see first, he says first, setting things in order. Remember what we talked about a few Sabbaths ago. All the servants of Elohim, the disciples of the Messiah, function like Messiah. They are orderly, and they accomplish things. And even in the way they speak orderly, so that all could understand. So he says, first, in good order, first, I thank my Elohim through Yeshua Messiah for you all. As I address the sound matter. I'm sorry. Thank you, brother. We had a background noise I had to deal with. All right. So it says, he thanks his Elohim, the Elohim he serves, through Yeshua, the elect one. No one can come to the Father unless you go through Yeshua. And so Paul, as he's addressing the Romans, he is setting that standard by example. But it's not just words. It's reality for him. It's reality. He has this relationship that's funneled, that is, or enabled through Messiah. And yet so many today think they could just approach the Father and like Messiah is a second thought. It's not like that. That's impossible. We have to have that strong, grounded faith of understanding in our relationship with Elohim, that it is through Yeshua, his son. No one can come before Elohim directly, not even the angels. Okay, not even the angels can do that. So first I thank my Elohim through Yeshua Messiah for you all, for all of them. He gives thanks. He gives thanks for you all. What? That your faith is spoken throughout the whole world. See, this congregation in Rome, they are well known. How are they well known? We will see. They were well known. Their faith, their right understanding that leads to trust, that is, their faith is well known throughout the whole world. And so Paul is thankful for that. And then we could understand that, because if a congregation has such an influence, that means the world is being blessed. That means the world, people are being made aware of the knowledge of Elohim and his son and salvation. So that's why that is so important. And that's why we need to make sure that we are functioning like this. As we've said in the past Sabbath, we are, the body of Messiah was established to be exemplars to the world. We have to be, this scatteredness is not the will of Elohim. We have to come to understand that. And we have to understand that all of us who know the truth must help others come together. It's not biblical for us to have isolated groups. These people did not have phone, internet. They did not have all these automated ways of traveling and communication, yet their faith was known throughout all the world because they worked hard at it to communicate and to be an example for the world. We need to do that. When, again, Yeshua said, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify the Father in heaven. He's not speaking about individuals. He's speaking about a body coming together, functioning in such a way that the world can see something unique, something, what's that word? If it comes to mind, I'll say something unique, peculiar, something peculiar about these people. Look how they have faith in this, in the invisible Elohim. Look at their love for this invisible Elohim. Look at how there is a true communication between them and the Elohim, because he answers them by evident power, by healings and knowledge that's beyond the norm. And look how they love each other. Look how they care for each other. Look how they resolve their problems. Look how they don't sue each other. Look how they tend to each other. Look how they share everything, as is stated, except their wives, with each other. They share everything except their spouses, as is written among the ancient writings. They share everything. This is what we need to understand. Messiah is looking for. This is what Messiah established, and this is what all of us, if we love Messiah, we must do our part in this generation. To bring at least the awareness of the need for this level of unity. What people choose to do with it is their choice, because in every generation, Elohim will have his congregation, his body. He will have it, but it's never scattered. His body is never scattered like this forever. His body, there's always in every generation a group that decides to unite and do exactly what the Bible says and be able to prove it. We allege it and we demonstrate it. That's how we are to function. And this is how people will see and believe. This is what Messiah meant. By your love, they will know that you are my disciples. Again, it's not so much how much we try to love them. It's not how much we try to love the world. It's more so much how much we love each other, so the world can see that. Because I'm sure, as I said before, I'm sure many of you have extended love to an unbeliever. What became of it? They didn't think too much of it, because that's not how humans function. If you notice, we like to look at things a lot. That's why people look at the internet, look at TV, and they like to watch. And in watching, they somehow understand. So when they could watch us, when we can be the examples of a good relationship with Elohim, where it's evident there's some sort of communication between heaven and earth, and that communication has helped us in the way we live, then people will believe. Then people will glorify Elohim in heaven, for they will see the interaction of Elohim and his spirit working through us. Hope we could understand that. I'll keep saying this as Elohim enables me to explain it better. So let's move on. So your faith is spoken throughout the whole world. For Elohim is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit. So Elohim is my witness. How? I can't fully understand, but somehow the spirit of Elohim, these are not just empty words. Well, it is, or some sort of swear or some sort of oath. These are all meaningful words that are based from experience of the apostle. But I won't try to explain this. For Elohim is my witness. Elohim can bear witness. And when Elohim bear witness, he does so. He does so in power and demonstration to prove that what the apostle is saying is true. Elohim backs him up. For Elohim is my witness, whom I serve. He serves Elohim. How? Not through his carnal understanding or carnal desire, but with my spirit. The spirit that's in him, the natural spirit that develops in man, the spirit that's in man, but his spirit is submissive to what? To Elohim, to the spirit of Elohim, not the world. So we're with my spirit in the gospel of his son, in the good news of his son. The good news of his son, said here in verse 9, is the same good news separated to the gospel, the good news of Elohim, stated in verse 1. They're one in the same. They're not different gospels. They're one in the same. For Yeshua is the good news of Elohim. I love you, world, and I've sent my son to die for you, to save you, to bless you, to make you all that I created you to be. That's in his son. He is the resurrection and the life. So that's the good news of Elohim, the good news of Messiah, of his son. That without ceasing, I make mention of you always in my prayers. Without ceasing, always in my prayers. Again, the apostle is not just going around boasting. He's an apostle, and then he's watching TV. He's going to the movies, going to the beach to get a tan. No, he has more important things to do. He has things to pray for effectually. He has work to do. All right. So always, I make mention of you always in my prayers. These are all things for us to learn and practice as in ourselves. Making requests, if by some means now at last I may find a way in the will of Elohim to come to you. So in praying, he also asks, he so much wants to go there. He says, if now at last I may find a way within the will of Elohim to come to you. It says so many that are out there trying to go outside the will of Elohim to do things. Elohim, as I said, always equips his servants to serve in a certain capacity. But some are not content, because they're not trying to serve him according to the spirit, but according to the flesh. They want big numbers. They want more money. And so they ask and make petitions for money and all sorts of things. And they go against the very teachings of the word so that they can draw people. They compromise the word. They become pleasers of men so that they can get as many people as possible and as much money as possible. And so to quote unquote expand their ministry. What? Expand our ministry? What's all that about? There's no such thing in the congregation of Elohim. There's no such thing in the true body of Messiah. We are given a work to do, as Paul said, separated unto the gospel of Messiah. He was not called to be a bishop. He was not called to be anything else but an apostle to proclaim the gospel of Messiah. And he does everything within the will of Elohim. And the will of Elohim is not unknown to him. So we don't try to expand our ministry outside of the will of Elohim, outside of the means that he has given us. Because if he wants us to do something, guess what he will do? He will open those doors. We don't need to ask another man, can you please give me $1 million, $1,000 so I can do X? All that is phony, bogus. Okay, no, within the will of Elohim, he's not going to go outside that will. Find some other means to do it. Verse 11, for I long to see you. That's the love. We want to talk about love. We want to talk about love. That's love. For I long to see you. But you know why he loves them? It's not a personal relationship. And this is why I warn people, don't make the work of Elohim personal. It is foremost labor and work. And this was why I like to say we are his employees. We are his workers foremost. Okay, the relationship builds as we do that. Do you think Paul knows all of these Romans? This is, I long to see you. Why? For something greater than a personal relationship with them, that they belong to Elohim. That's why. That's why. They belong to Elohim. That's why. It's not, oh, I know this brother. I know this sister. Oh, he's so clever, or he's so funny, or he has, no. It's, does this person belong to Elohim? Yes or no? If that person belongs to Elohim, that person is precious in our sight by the working of the Spirit in our hearts. It can only happen for those who love Elohim and love the brethren. We don't love the brethren because we first know them personally. We love them because they are known by Elohim, and their works manifest the love of Elohim. So therefore we love them. I know that's how it works for me. And I've seen it. I've seen all the brethren, usually when they make the work of Elohim something personal, where they feel like, I got to know you personally first, I have to meet you face to face, it usually ends up being nothing. And usually these are people that are unfortunately function according to the flesh. It's the flesh that desires these things so much. What the Spirit desires is that we are spiritually discerned, and we can tell, and we believe the word of Messiah is by their works you shall know who they are. So when we see the works of a person, though we don't know them personally, but when we see their steadfast love, when we see no evidence of evil, then we appreciate that. And we want to be with such brethren. It has nothing to do with, I want to see your face. There's nothing wrong with those things. Nothing wrong with wanting to see a person's face. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a person, but those things come afterwards. But some people put that beforehand, and they wonder why they can't connect. And why? Because they're not spiritually discerned. They're looking for fleshy things instead of the spiritual things. So Paul had that spiritual discernment. And so his heart was enlarged, as written, enlarge my heart. And he could, that I long to see you, that I may impart to you some spiritual gift. No, he's not coming, oh, I want to go there so I can see how much money I'm going to put in my pocket after this mission. No, he's going to give them a spiritual gift. Why? So that you may be established. A little bit about the spiritual gift. The spiritual gift is, again, connecting to what our sister in the UK, Sister Sophie read today in that portion of scripture, that Paul came by the demonstration of the power of the Spirit, not in words. That's very important for us. And that's how all the apostles worked. That's how all the prophets worked, by the demonstration of the power of the Spirit. And so he came to give them a spiritual gift, not words, brethren. So if you want to know the spiritual gifts, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12 through 14. and you will see what some of those gifts are. And that's exactly what Paul is talking about when he talks about that, a spiritual gift. And because so that you may be established, and you will see the gifts, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, works to us is for the edification and strengthening of the whole body. And so that's what he's going to do there. He wants to impart a spiritual gift so that they may be established. So they were not fully established. See, they were not fully established. They're still growing. And so are we today. And so is every congregation that has ever existed since. We're always learning, we're living, and we teach. We learn it, we live it, we teach it for the edification of the body. Verse 12, that is, that I may be encouraged together with you by mutual faith, both you and me. That is, establish. That is, we may be in one accord. That's what that is saying. We may be. Why is that important? Because Paul is the instrument of Elohim for the Gentiles. He wants to, by the Spirit of God, wants to make sure that the Romans are well grounded in the true faith, so that they will have that mutual faith, both you and me. What is faith? Faith is the evidence which causes us to trust, right? I'm paraphrasing briefly what it says in Hebrews, right? Chapter 11. So when you get faith, it enables you to trust. Faith is not trusting. That's not exactly correct. Faith is that medium, that source that allows you to trust. It's an understanding. It's something that gives you enough understanding to trust. When you read Hebrews chapter 11, you will see that, for example, as I mentioned, Noah had faith to build the ark. He didn't just believe, he heard the voice. When he heard the words of the Almighty, he believed. Unless he heard those words, he would have never gone out to such a venture. Of course not. But he heard the word and he believed that word. Okay. So he wants to have that unity, that one faith between them both, so that they're not drifting to some other faith, because around that time there were a lot of false doctrines rising up. Gnostic, so-called false, they call them a Gnostic. They have knowledge, but so-called, falsely called, that were springing out, dividing Messiah into different sections, and dividing Elohim into different sections, that there is this Elohim and that Elohim, all sorts of different Elohims, and that Messiah is about 2 or 3 different things, all sorts of teachings that were going out back then. Paul and all the apostles wanted to make sure that the brethren were well grounded. And there's a lot of that going on today, brethren. One of the things I've seen, and I'm not surprised, because I've seen a lot of people pushing for Hebrew names, Hebrew this, and it worked. And Elohim has a way of demonstrating truth. Now, a lot of these people, guess what they're doing? They're putting out there tons of messages that are convoluted and with images of supposedly to be Yeshua in the form of lions and things like that, or they'll make images of glowing beings seated on a throne, and they're supposed to be commandment keepers. Isn't it one of the first commandments that you shall make no image, not of anything on the earth or in heaven? And Elohim told Moses, when you were on the mountain, you saw nothing, right? We are not to make images. Now, a lot of these so-called Hebraic people, they cannot help the spirit that's driving them in the first place. Now is made manifest, because they're making images of Elohim, of Yeshua, in the likeness of 4-footed creatures, lions and things of that nature, fiery lions, or shining people sitting on thrones. That is wrong. That is not Torah observant. And yet they're boasting that they observe Torah and the simple things of Torah, their carnal nature pushes them. That is a different spirit. You can see that's driving them because they argue and tear each other down about stuff. And Elohim, as it says, sits on his throne and will make all these things into spectacles because they will prove themselves wrong by their very open and disobedience to the very Torah they're boasting that they observe. We should make no images to represent Elohim or his son. All right, so let's continue here. So mutual faith. Now, I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that I often planned to come to you, but was hindered until now. So he understands the dynamics of how Elohim works. He wanted so much to go to the Romans to impart to them a gift to establish their faith. But he said, but I don't want you to be ignorant. I wanted to come before, but I was hindered until now. Why? Why was he understands. He has this spiritual discernment that I might have some fruit among you also, just as among the other Gentiles. He understood that it has to be mutual, that as it is written, they impart a spiritual blessing and you give them of your carnal blessing. Not so much that Paul needs these things, as you will see, but it's their way for them to exercise their faith, because for the love of that Elohim wants the world to see to happen, it must be mutual. We must see the servants going and those receiving, giving, like they're giving with they're sharing among each other. Paul doesn't want it to be that he goes there and their hearts are stingy. If you could understand, because the body must be dynamic and active and flowing one to another. I give you this, you give me that, a blessing and joy together. It shouldn't be where you go and you just sit and you don't hear any sound. You know, everyone has straight faces. You know, they're sitting on their hands and they're doing nothing. And Paul says, goodbye. And then they look at Paul and wave, and Paul leaves. No, I'm being silly, but here, what I know is Paul wants the spiritual dynamic of the flow of love. I'm going to give you what I have to give you. Now you exercise your gift of giving as well, that I might have some fruit among you also. And it's not just giving of physical things. It could be the demonstration of love, the appreciation, their exhibition of kindness, of love, of the fruits of the Spirit. Also, see, the fruit and the gift. I'm coming to give you the gift, but I'm hoping to receive from you. That's why I've been delayed, so that when I come, I will see fruit in you. And he continues. So what does that mean for us? That's why we need to be dynamic. Then this is why our service from the very beginning, it's always been an open service. When brethren come, it's open for them to share. It's not a one-person show. Too often it's me that's teaching it, simply because we don't have enough volunteers yet. But the door is always open. And I'm sure all who have spoken before knows that is the case, right? So we must be a very interactive body of Messiah, so that the world can see his love flowing through us. He said, I'm a debtor to both the Greeks and to the barbarians, both to the wise and to the unwise. So as much as in me, I am ready to preach the gospel to you who are in Rome also. So he is explaining how he is a debtor. Why? By Messiah, by the commission of Messiah, he is obligated to serve the whole world as much as is in him, not beyond the means. What's in him? He functions by the Spirit of Elohim, not by man, not by his own. As much as in me, what is in him? As much as he has received from Messiah that's in him, he will do. We don't try to do beyond what Messiah has enabled us. We don't need to go begging. And this is why to this day, I thank Elohim, I never once had to ask money from anybody. And to me, I'm grateful for that. It's not pride, but it's a joy, because there's too much of that going on in the world, and I don't want to have anything to do with that kind of thing. I want to Leave no occasion for the world to accuse those that are truly trying to be the servants of Elohim. So as much as in me, I'm ready to preach the good news to you who are in Rome also, who are in the fourth beast also. For I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Messiah, for it is the power of Elohim to salvation for everyone who believes. Okay, for everyone, whosoever, we don't force, we don't argue, we don't stress. I used to do that a lot in the past. I used to try so hard to convince people, but no, that then it says no, whosoever wills. Jackson, stop fighting. It's whosoever wills. We don't need to stress. If they don't, if Elohim was calling them, they would listen. It doesn't mean we give up on them. We keep praying for them. But when the time comes, their hearts will be enlarged to listen. If not to us, to another brother, or to other brethren who are true brethren. They will, when the time's right. But I'm not ashamed of the gospel, of the good news. It is good news that there is an Elohim, creator of heaven and earth. He has created us for a wonderful purpose, that we might experience his love and that he might experience our love. Okay, that's the purpose of our creation, to share, to be his family. And that despite our sins, which separate us from that, he foreknew this and sent his uniquely born son, his very word, his first word, to come in the flesh, to live a perfect life, to do extraordinary deeds, and to demonstrate the true faith and to teach it, to do wonders in the earth, and to suffer at the hands of his own creation, to die and to rise again victoriously. And let me not forget, he died not like a regular man and he's silent. No, not the son of Elohim. The son of Elohim was not silent, because the son of Elohim descended to the lower parts of the earth to set the captives free. And this is why when he died, Matthew said the tombs were open and many came out. Many came out. And after, when he rose from the dead, when he accomplished his mission down there, they went into the holy city. And they're not talking about earthly Jerusalem. Okay? So they went when he rose from the dead. And he spent 40 days teaching, confirming, establishing the 11 Talmudim until at the right time, Matthias replaced the one who was lost, Judas, and it became 12 again. And afterwards, we have the 13th apostle, Paul, and probably others added. But so, yeah, we're not ashamed of that. What are we to be? Look at the world. Look what the world has to offer. Degradation, destruction, wars that can't cease, people fighting over literally nothing, destroying. Why should we at all be ashamed of the gospel? And even if the world was pristine, we should not be ashamed of the gospel. If the world was pristine, it would welcome Yeshua's gospel, the gospel of Yeshua, right? So then we know we're not to be. Let's be mindful of what the gospel is. It's about Elohim all the way through the salvation and everything in between that he has done for us, so that one day we can live with him forever and ever without the issues of sin, and grow from grace to grace. Remember, grace, power, enabling, knowledge, forbearance, all these wonderful things, to grow in his knowledge, to become spirit beings who are not subject to the cold or to the heat. We don't have to worry about coats or need a fan. We don't need to worry about things like that. We'll be spiritual beings. We'll be, as Yeshua say, equal to the angels, right? Like the angels. And we will grow more and more powerful over time, not to boast, not for vain vanity, but for the glory of Elohim. So we can grow that much closer to the Father over time. So that's the wonderful, good news. And let's be like Paul and not be ashamed of it, for it is the power of Elohim to salvation for everyone who believes, for whosoever believes. For the Jew first, and also to the Greek. For the Jew first. Remember how many Jews have been saved in the past before Yeshua came. Remember, his salvation is retroactive, if I'm saying, if that's the right term I should use. It reaches all the way back to Adam, all the way back, his salvation, and forward until the last generation, until he returns. Remember that. So all Israel in the past who had served Elohim, who wanted to serve, they'll be saved. And the many in the time of the book of Acts, and the thousands upon thousands that were being saved among the Jews and among the Gentiles as well. The many from since then, since the time of the God of the apostles to this present day, Gentiles are being saved. In every nation, their incense of prayer and thanksgiving are being offered to Elohim in the name of Messiah. Through no other name, no other faith is Elohim's name being praised as such, as through the teachings of the gospel, that the knowledge of the true Elohim has so spread throughout all the earth. Yeah. And that's the testimony that's one among many testimonies that this is the true faith. So let's try to finish here. So to the Jew first, and also to the Greek. Now let me say this. There's another verse that says, tribulation to the Jew first and the Greek. Blessings to the Jew first and to the Greek. Let me just say, as we're going to be embarking, starting to will event, start again the book of Revelation, that we keep that in mind. To the Jew first, and also to the Greek. And the Greek here is you could say is representing the entire nations. That's why it's not just the Grecian nation, but all the nations is what it's talking about. For in it the righteousness of Elohim is revealed from faith to faith, from knowledge leading to trust, to knowledge leading to trust. As it is written, the just shall live by faith. All right, dear brethren, thank you for listening. So quick recap, we see quickly how he gave thanks for them, for the Romans, and how their knowledge is spoken of throughout the whole world, and how he prays for them all the time, and how he longs to see them, and how he longs to give them a spiritual gift, and how he wants to receive fruit, be rejoiced by the fruit in them, and that how he is indebted to preach the gospel to all, and he wants the Romans to know that Eve to them also, and that he is not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of salvation to all who believe. Many blessings, dear brethren. Thank you for listening.